Okay, how Eratosthenes measured the world, part 2. In any case, Eratosthenes decided that the fact that the sun was directly overhead Syene at noon on June 21st and not overhead Alexandria at noon on June 21st was due to the curvature of the Earth. The Earth was round, punk, and the sun was so far away that its rays were essentially parallel. So the sun's coming down in parallel lines. There's the well in Syene, and the sun is going straight down into it. And there's his pillar. Now, even though his pillar is straight up and down, because the earth is curved, it casts a shadow. And so what he did was he looked at a shadow, there's the pillar, he took the shadow, and he measured that angle. Now, he didn't measure it terribly accurately, because he said that it was approximately 1/50th of a circle. He knows that a full, that's one way of measuring angles. I don't know if he used degrees. Conceivably, he could have, because this is after Alexander the Great encountered Babylon. Did Alexander read Babylonian documents? I don't know. In any case, what he did was, he knew basic geometry. He knew that this line and this line were parallel lines. He also knew that both, if the well is dug straight down into the ground and the pillar goes straight down in the ground, that means that the pillar and the well, let's see if I can draw this a little bit better. The pillar and the well both will meet at the center of the earth. I wish I had drawn that so it looked more like the center of the earth. But anyway, a well going straight into the ground points to the center of the earth. A pillar does as well. And he said, hey, these are parallel lines crossed by a transversal. That means that this angle and this angle are the same. Alternate interior angles. So if this is 1/50th of a circle, that this is 1/50th of a circle. Which means that the distance from the pillar in Alexandria all the way to the well in Syene must be 1/50th of the way around the world. And I don't know if he had a map this good at that time, but the emperor of Egypt, the pharaoh of Egypt, as people who rule entire kingdoms are wont to do, had measured the extent, the length, and breadth of his empire, and there was on record the distance from Alexandria to Syene. The story I heard was that the emperor had ordered someone to walk from Alexandria to Syene and count his steps. And that was how he measured the distance. So again, not a terribly accurate estimate. Why? Because it came out to be a very nice round number. The distance from Alexandria to Syene was estimated to be 5,000 stades. Now you wonder, what's a stade? Well, that's a great question. They didn't use feet back then. That's sort of a British unit of measurement. They didn't use meters. That's an even more modern measurement. What a stade was one trip around a stadium. And anyway, so if 5,000 stades is 1/50th of the way around the world, that means that the circumference of the earth is 50 of those. The circumference of the earth, if 1/50th of the way around the earth is 5,000 trips around a stadium, then the circumference of the earth is 50 times 5,000 stades, which is 250,000 stades. 250 trips around a stadium. Now, the question is, how big around is a stadium? Well, the cool thing is, archaeologists can dig up ancient stadiums. Now, the only problem is, we don't know whether Eratosthenes, who is a Greek-speaking person, would have used a Greek measurement of a stadium Or would he have used an Egyptian measure of a stadium? The stadia in Egypt were a little bit smaller. All of the stadiums in ancient Greece were about the same size. All of the stadiums in ancient Egypt were the same size, but they were different. Well, I'm going to suppose, what is it? 157 meters. I'm going to suppose that the Emperor of Egypt, one stade, is approximately 157 meters. I'm going to suppose that the ancient Egyptian pharaoh who had his kingdom measured it in Egyptian units. And that says that the circumference of the earth is approximately 157 meters times, that's meters per stade, times 250,000 stades. The stades cancel out. And we get 157 times 250,000, 39,250,000. 39,250,000 meters, also known as 39,250 kilometers, which is remarkably close. In reality, the sea is closer to 40,000 kilometers. But the Earth is bumpy, it bulges out in the middle. There's no one specific exact measurement around the Earth, but holy cow, he was so close. He was so close. And this is why when Columbus told the wise people that he was going to sail around the world and he was going to leave the islands right off the tip of Portugal, or maybe he left off of here. When he said he was going to sail this way and keep going 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 until he reached India, all the wise people of the time said, that's too far. And in fact, he was pretty much out of water when he landed on the Dominican Republic. There's no way he would have made it. If there hadn't been this landmass in the middle that nobody knew about, he would have died. But the king and queen of Portugal at the time were desperate to have some sort of achievement, and so they said, what the heck, we'll give you some ships. And in fact, he discovered the New World for the Europeans. The people who lived there had already discovered it long, long ago, and the Vikings had come up from Newfoundland and colonized the northern part of Canada, etc., etc. Anyway, I think that this is a wonderful application of geometry. How you have parallel lines crossed by a transversal, that means that these angles are the same. It just blows my mind. If I were looking to see a pillar that's equally light on all sides because the sun is directly overhead, and it didn't happen, I would have been discouraged. He was not discouraged. He said, I can just look at this shadow, and I can see that that is the angle at the center of the earth between my pillar and this well that I've heard about. And if I can just look up and find out the distance from my pillar to that well, I can tell you how big the world was. And he was remarkably close. Remarkably close to say that to walk entirely around the world was about to walk around an Egyptian stadium 250,000 times.